Good morning, friends. Welcome to another edition of Johnny W. Bread Podcast. Thank you for joining me, and let's get started. You ever think that, when you have a fervent belief in something, particularly something being wrong or an injustice taking place, um, proceeding to go forward and do whatever you can to prevent this injustice or making this thing right may not be the wisest thing to do. In fact, maybe God, who is sovereign over all things, maybe is using an injustice or something along those lines to create a greater good. And I've seen somebody demonstrate this recently in practice, and the results they haven't been established yet. But I just want to throw this out at you. Somebody had told me that their son was placed on disciplinary probation for an incident while their son had done something wrong. They thought the idea of disciplinary probation was way over the top, and they can actually document some cases where some kids at a school have done far worse things than this particular boy, and yet were not placed on any form of disciplinary probation. Yet this particular boy is. And this person wanted to make that called attention to the head of the school and some disciplinary committee members that that's not fair. But it didn't change the situation. The disciplinary committee decided to keep the boy on probation, and the woman, who was at the time very, very, very upset about this, and of course wanted to defend her child or her son, who she thinks is being really unfairly treated. She wanted to really lash out at the committee and really pursue whatever action she could to make sure that the boy got a sentence or something that was in the proper measure of what he deserved. However, after some soul searching and some thinking about God and what God would want, she determined, although she made her point known, that she wasn't going to pursue this any further. And this was her reasoning. As I said before, sometimes God does things. He can use even injustices to create a greater good. And this woman, who's a Christian, determined that maybe there was some events in her son's life that created an attitude problem. It's not a great attitude problem. It's not something that the world would think was like the boy's going to be in reform school soon. But he showed a lack of respect and a certain characteristic of a young man that's not exemplary. And during some talking with the boy, she had mentioned that as a boy who professes on his own to believe in Jesus Christ, he is, even as a young man, an ambassador, and he has a responsibility to live his life and conduct himself in a way that is exemplary and fitting of being a Christian. And because of that, the mom determined that God has placed her son's standards and what he expects and requires of him higher than the average teenage boy. And perhaps she thought maybe the fact that some of these boys who have done worse things and have been punished less severely, it's not helping them at all. And while her son may be being treated more harshly than he deserves, this is what is necessary to get his attention. And to help him realize that this lesson is going to be valuable in the long run, to know that God's going to be looking at him in a way different than his friends or different than the people he goes to school with. And maybe the fact that the school having a higher standards for this young man, I don't know why they do that. I don't think they directly persecuting him as a Christian, because I doubt they really know much about him in a sense. He doesn't go around publicizing his faith necessarily at school. But maybe God is using the administration of a school in the boy's life to get his attention to know, I'm going to put the brakes on you right now and let you realize that these little things you're doing, these little nuisances, these little attitude, let's just call them sometimes fresh remarks he makes to teachers. Whether some of these teachers are deserving of respect is another matter. The fact is they're an authority figure over a young man. and he seems to sometimes want to buck against them and always get the last word. And maybe this is God's way of getting his attention. Maybe it's God's way of telling him, you know, this frustration you experience is maybe because you're not trusting in me enough. Maybe you're not taking the time to learn about me, to conform your way of thinking to the biblical text, and to wanting to honor God as a young man. This is something that would make me wonder if we as Christians are, who are always trying to devote to making better a holy cause that we desire to see happen, is always the best option. I always think we should pursue an option that is just, but sometimes when we go to the next level, it would seem like maybe this injustice keeps going on and on and on. Rather than pursue trying to make the injustice right, maybe we should just, let's see where the injustice leads. Maybe ultimately it's going to lead to a greater good. Just my thoughts for today. Next time I think we're going to talk about modesty. Some interesting observations I have on that, thanks to a sermon I recently heard. Until next time, Johnny W. Bread, enjoy your day.